Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something really exciting, the Playa del Carmen real estate market in Mexico.
That's right. We're talking beachfront condos, vacation rentals, the works.
This market has gone through a complete transformation over the past 9 years.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for sure.
So we're going to break it all down. What's changed, what it means for those looking to invest.
Especially for anyone dreaming of owning a piece of paradise.
Exactly. And we've got some great data from the Red Search to guide us.
It really shows just how dramatic the shift has been. Everything from the types of properties in demand to the price points.
Okay, so before we get into the really good stuff, set the scene for us. What was Playa del Carmen's real estate like back in 2015?
All right, so picture this. Only 26 condo developments in the entire city.
Wow, just 26? And today?
Today, we're talking over 150.
That is a huge difference.
Back then, the whole vacation rental thing was still catching on.
Right, it wasn't as common as it is now.
Some condo buildings were offering rental management. It gave owners a little taste of that sweet passive income stream.
But Airbnb was just starting to make a global impact then.
Hey, exactly.
And those ripples definitely reached Playa del Carmen shores.
Oh, absolutely. By 2019, Airbnb had racked up a mind-blowing 327 million bookings worldwide.
Wow, that's massive.
This surge in global travel, people wanting those unique experiences,
Yeah,
platforms like Airbnb made it easier than ever to book those short-term stays.
for sure.
It completely reshaped Playa del Carmen's real estate scene. We saw a huge shift in the kind of condo units being built to match what these new vacationers were looking for.
So it wasn't just about building more condos, but building different condos.
You got it. In 2015, the typical condo size was around 125 square meters, designed for families, longer stays. Today, that shrunk to an average of 82 square meters.
That's quite a reduction.
And some units are even smaller, like as compact as 18 square meters.
18 square meters. What kind of spaces are we talking about here?
Think studios, lofts,
Ah, okay, I see.
perfect for those short-term vacationers.
Makes sense. So developers were adapting, building what investors wanted, and investors were increasingly interested in that rental income.
Precisely. They weren't necessarily looking for a place to live themselves, but rather a property that could generate income.
It's a smart move. So we've got more vacation rentals, smaller condo units.
Right.
But how did all of this impact prices? I bet things got interesting.
Oh, you have no idea. Back in 2015, condo prices in Playa del Carmen, they range from, let's say, around $117,000 to $1,165,000.
Okay, a pretty decent range.
Today, get this, you've got options as low as $75,000 for those compact units.
Wow, that's pretty affordable.
All the way up to, wait for it, $2.5 million for the luxury spots.
Talk about a jump. But you know, what I find really fascinating is how all of this shows a bigger story. The way we travel is changing, how we invest in places like Playa del Carmen, it's evolving.
It really is. It shows the growing appeal of vacation rentals, that desire for experiences over material things.
It's like you're not just buying a property, you're buying into a lifestyle, a whole experience.
Exactly. And it's opened up opportunities for a much wider range of investors. You don't have to be rolling in it to own a little piece of paradise in Playa del Carmen anymore.
I love that. It's more accessible now. Okay, so
Yeah.
we've talked vacation rentals, the smaller condos, the wider price range.
Yeah.
But what about the return on investment? Has the average investor actually seen their property value go up significantly in these past 9 years?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let's look at the price per square meter. That gives us a good idea of how value has increased. In 2015, it averaged around $2,471.
Okay.
Today, we're looking at a jump to $3,830.
That's a significant increase. Seems like investing in Playa del Carmen's real estate back in 2015 would have been a pretty smart move.
It definitely suggests that. However, we've got to remember that developers often calculate that price per square meter differently. Sometimes it's for marketing.
Right, good point.
Hmm.
So while the trend shows a promising market, doing your homework is absolutely essential.
100%. Understanding exactly how those figures are calculated, it can make all the difference.
For sure. Speaking of understanding the details, I'm sure there's a lot to consider when it comes to navigating this market as a potential investor. Where do we even start?
Yeah, I mean, it can feel overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even begin when you're thinking about investing in a foreign real estate market?
It's like navigating a maze sometimes. But that's where finding a good realtor comes in. I mean, a really good one, someone local who knows the ins and outs of Playa del Carmen.
So finding that trustworthy guide, that's priority number one. What else should potential investors be thinking about?
Well, even before you start browsing those beachfront properties, you need to figure out what your goals are for this investment. Are you aiming for those short-term vacation rentals or something more long-term like leases or maybe a mix of both?
Right, like what's the plan? Vacation rentals, longer leases, or a bit of both? It's like choosing your own adventure, but with a lot more at stake. That's a great way to put it. And your strategy for this investment will really shape what kind of property and location you should be looking at.
Speaking of location, I imagine there are tons of different neighborhoods in Playa del Carmen, each with its own vibe and potential for investment.
You're right on the money. For example, there's the heart of downtown, super lively, always buzzing with tourists, properties there, perfect for those short-term vacation rentals.
Right, that makes sense. High demand, quick turnover.
Exactly, but maybe you're after something a little more laid back. Then you might look at gated communities. They offer that peace and quiet while still being close to all the action.
It's good to have options. Sounds like Playa del Carmen has a little something for every taste and budget. But once you've found a few properties that you're into, it's time to talk numbers, right?
Absolutely. You've got to understand the financial side of things. Let's start with the upfront costs, your down payment, closing costs, property taxes, all those things you need to factor in before you even get the keys.
Right, because paradise does have a price tag, as they say.
It does indeed.
What about the ongoing expenses, though? The things you need to budget for once you actually own the place?
Good point. You've got your condo fees, utilities, and then if you're not planning on managing the property yourself, you'll need to factor in property management fees too.
Right, because that's a whole other thing. It's all about the cash flow, right?
Yeah,
Before I even think about those ocean views, I need to make sure my investment actually aligns with my financial goals.
you got it. And don't forget about potential vacancy rates. Even in a hotspot like Playa del Carmen, there will be times when the property isn't rented out, especially with how tourism can be, kind of up and down.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in that best case scenario, but you've got to be prepared for those quieter periods too.
100%. Having realistic expectations is key. And while no one can predict the future, you should definitely think about potential appreciation too. Playa del Carmen's real estate has been growing pretty steadily for the past decade, which could be a good sign for what's to come.
It's definitely something to consider. So we've got finding that reliable realtor, setting clear investment goals, checking out the different neighborhoods, and really understanding the financial side of things. Anything else that might influence an investor's decision?
Oh, definitely. One thing people often overlook is the legal and regulatory side of things. You need to understand how foreign ownership works, property taxes, any regulations, that whole landscape.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all, but making sure everything is legit from a legal standpoint, that's crucial.
For sure. Having a good lawyer who really knows Mexican real estate law, that can save you a lot of trouble down the line.
No kidding. It sounds like doing your homework is non-negotiable for anyone serious about investing in Playa del Carmen.
You got it. Understanding the market trends, the legal stuff, and your own goals, that's how you make smart decisions.
And maybe even find some hidden gems, properties that really fit your vision and your budget.
Exactly. It's not just buying a property, it's an investment in a whole lifestyle, a whole new experience.
Speaking of experience, what makes investing in Playa del Carmen different from other real estate markets? What are the advantages?
That's a great question. One of the big draws is the potential for strong rental yields. The Riviera Maya, it's a world-famous tourist destination. People are coming year-round.
So even during the off-season, there's still a good demand for rentals.
You got it. And that constant demand means there's a good chance of seeing a solid return on your investment.
So we've got the beauty of the place, the potential for good rental income. What about the lifestyle?
Ah, the Playa del Carmen lifestyle. Imagine waking up to the sound of waves every morning, walking along those amazing beaches, trying all the incredible food.
Sounds pretty dreamy. No wonder so many people want to own a piece of that. But what about the practical stuff, the language barrier, for example, or adjusting to a new culture?
I get it, those are valid concerns. But Playa del Carmen has a big expat community, they're really welcoming, it makes settling in a lot easier.
That's good to know.
And while Spanish is the official language, English is spoken pretty widely, especially in the touristy areas.
Okay, that's reassuring. So we have the potential for good rental income, the vibrant culture, a welcoming community, and of course those amazing Caribbean views. What about the future? What do experts think about the long-term outlook for the real estate market in Playa del Carmen?
Well, predicting the future is always a gamble, but a lot of experts believe that the Riviera Maya real estate market is set for continued growth.
That's good news for investors. But of course, with any investment, there are risks. What are some of the potential downsides or challenges investors should be aware of?
One thing to keep in mind is that tourism can be cyclical. Economic downturns or unexpected events like, we saw with the pandemic recently, those can impact how many tourists come, which then impacts the demand for rentals.
Right, so even though the long-term outlook might be good, you got to be ready for those bumps in the road.
Exactly. Having a diverse investment portfolio and a solid financial plan, that can help you handle those risks better.
It's all about being prepared. Sounds like knowledge is power, especially in a market like Playa del Carmen's.
100%. Arming yourself with information, finding good advisors, those are the keys to making smart investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more. This has been so insightful. It's amazing how much a real estate market can transform in just 9 years.
It really is. It shows just how dynamic real estate can be, especially somewhere as sought after as Playa del Carmen.
And speaking of transformations, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this real estate boom has impacted Playa del Carmen itself. What's changed beyond just the buildings and prices?
That's a great point. We should talk about that. It's important to remember that development, especially rapid development, it can have both good and bad consequences.
It's about finding that balance, right,
Yeah.
between growth and preserving what makes a place unique. It really is a balancing act. So we've talked about the sustainable side of things, the positive changes, but I'm curious about the flip side. Are there concerns about things like overdevelopment or the infrastructure struggling to keep up with all this growth in Playa del Carmen?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Those are valid concerns. When you have growth happening that fast, it can put a strain on resources, infrastructure, all of that. But it's not necessarily a downhill slide from here. Playa del Carmen seems committed to tackling these challenges head on.
That's good to hear. What are some of the ways they're doing that?
Well, they've been putting a lot of effort into improving the infrastructure, especially in the areas where you see the most growth.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Like you said, between progress and preserving what makes Playa del Carmen special.
Exactly. And it takes careful planning, getting the community involved, having a real vision for the long term. It's not just about building more, it's about building better, making sure everyone benefits, both the people investing and the people who call Playa del Carmen home.
It makes you realize that responsible development, it's not just a nice idea, it's essential.
Absolutely. And that's where investors come in. When they support developers who are prioritizing sustainability, thinking about the community's well-being, they become part of the solution.
It's about making choices that align with your values, not just your financial goals.
100%. So for our listeners who are out there thinking, Playa del Carmen sounds amazing, I want in on this, what are the key things they should keep in mind?
What are the big takeaways?
The biggest one, hands down. Knowledge is power. Do your homework. Really understand the market trends. Find experts you trust. And don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of them.
Go deeper than just the surface, beyond those glossy brochures.
Yeah.
Really understand the heart of the market.
Exactly. And figure out what you want. What are your goals for this investment? Short-term rental income. Long-term appreciation. A little of both. Make sure your strategy matches your big picture financial goals.
It's got to be the right fit. What else?
Due diligence. Don't rush it. Take your time, look at different neighborhoods, compare properties, really crunch those numbers. And don't be afraid to bring in the professionals. A real estate lawyer, a financial advisor, they can make a world of difference.
So preparation is key.
It can make or break you. And one last thing. Real estate, it's a long game. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You might see some great returns, but you've got to be realistic about your expectations.
The market has its ups and downs, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be in it for the long haul. And remember, investing in a place like Playa del Carmen, it's not just about buying property. It's about a lifestyle. It's about owning a little piece of paradise.
Beautifully said. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into Playa del Carmen's real estate market. It's dynamic, it's evolving, and clearly there's a lot to consider. A huge thank you to you, expert speaker, for joining us today. Your insights have been invaluable.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've gained some valuable insights to guide your own real estate aspirations. Until next time, happy investing.